Teacher talking sports, what it does, what it do, how we live. And every Thursday, I've been doing a series called Is He a Hall of Famer, where I take a look at a player and figure out their Hall of Fame chances, whether they should be in or not, and have you guys decide whether you think that player should be in. I started off by doing players whose career recently ended or winding down. Recently, I transitioned to guys who have been out of the league for a decent amount of time now, but have yet to make their sports Hall of Fame and debate whether or not they should get in. So today we are going to look at a former NFL player, that being Roger Craig. Roger Craig, born July 10th, 1960, played collegiately at Nebraska, was taken second round, 49th overall in the 1983 NFL draft by the San Francisco 49ers. Craig would go on to play 8 seasons for the 49ers before joining the Raiders for the 1991 season. His final 2 seasons came with the Minnesota Vikings, where he played in 1992 and 1993. Let's take a look at his career numbers via his Pro Football Reference page. So as you can see, 165 career games, 1,991 attempts, 8,189 rushing yards, 4.1 yards a carry, and 56 rushing touchdowns. But his rushing numbers don't tell the whole picture, that is for sure. As we take a look at his 1985 season, we saw he rushed for 1,050 yards and had 1,016 receiving yards. He became the first player in NFL history to have both over 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards in a season. It has since been done by Marshall Faulk and Christian McCaffrey. Still just one of 3 guys to do so in what was an incredible season. That year, he also led the league in receptions and was a second team All-Pro. 1988, definitely probably his best season, as he was named the Offensive Player of the Year, named first team All Pro for the one time in his career, and finished third in MVP voting. That season, he had 1,502 rushing yards and 9 rushing touchdowns, while adding 76 catches for 534 yards, leading the league in yards from scrimmage with 2,036. So again, 8,189 rushing yards, 56 rushing touchdowns would be kind of low to debate whether he should be in the Hall of Fame. You'd expect him to need more, but also adding 4,911 receiving yards on 566 catches for another 17 scores definitely makes him more in the picture. Add to the fact that he won 3 Super Bowls. Was it 3? Yes, 3 Super Bowls with the 49ers, and that definitely gives him an even stronger case. Although, as you see, he had just 3 seasons where he rushed for over 1,000 yards, and really just that Offensive Player of the Year season was the only season where he ran for more than 1,054 yards. Had just 2 other seasons where he rushed for over 800 yards. After the 1989 season, really just never was as productive. Raiders, Vikings had some okay seasons, but definitely the downswing of his career. Take a look at his postseason marks. 18 games, 841 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, 63 catches, 606 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Again, 3-time Super Bowl winner in the 88 and 89 seasons, in 3 games apiece, 274 and 288 rushing yards, respectively, 5 rushing touchdowns. So very productive in the team's second and third Super Bowl seasons. He did have a costly fumble in the 1990 NFC Championship game against the Giants, which I believe was his last touch as a 49er. So there are people who believe that may be what keeping him out, which I think would be silly because he did win 3 Super Bowls prior to that. But again, you could look, his first 7 seasons also had at least 1,152 yards from scrimmage, had 4 seasons where he had double-digit touchdowns. Pro Football Reference uses approximate value, which helps you understand how good a player was for the year. Basically, if they're a 10 or higher, they had a good season. While Roger Craig's first 7 seasons all saw him finish with over a 10 approximate value. Take a look at his career marks. So, 4-time Pro Bowler, first team All Pro once, 41st all time in rushing attempts, 46th all time in rushing yards, 59th all time in rushing touchdowns, 114th all time in receptions, 95th all time in rushing / receiving touchdowns, 47th all time in yards from scrimmage. Pro Football Reference also has their Hall of Fame monitor. So as they mention, as it says, Pro Football Reference Hall of Fame monitors a metric designed to estimate a player's chances of making the Pro Football Hall of Fame using approximate value, Pro Bowls, All Pros, championships, and various stat milestones. So we take a look at where Roger Craig is down here at 77.48. So everyone above him is in the Hall of Fame that is eligible. The guys ahead of him who are not yet eligible, LaShawn McCoy, who actually did a previous video of Is He a Hall of Famer? Check it out. I have all these in a playlist. Frank Gore, whose longevity surely should get him in the Hall of Fame, and Adrian Peterson, who will be a no doubt Hall of Famer. Craig has a higher score than Jerome Bettis, John Riggins, Paul Hornung, Larry Zonka, and Floyd Little, 5 Hall of Fame running backs. So that score really doesn't diminish his chances of getting in. Let's take a look at this article, 49erswebzone.com. So Roger Craig's Hall of Fame case, according to 49ers Legends. We won't get fully into that, but it does mention some of his credentials. It mentions the fumble. 1990 NFC Championship game, 49ers trying to run out the clock, become the first team in NFL history to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls. Craig lost his grip on the ball. Lawrence Taylor recovered. Giants moved in the field goal position and won the game. Craig never played another down for the 49ers. Mentions how without the fumble, 49ers probably win their 3rd straight Super Bowl, and Craig may likely be in the Hall of Fame. But somewhere in here it mentioned, okay, here's his credentials. So doesn't take much to convince 49ers fans or former players and coaches that Craig should be in the Hall of Fame, but it will take a little more to convince the doubters. Fortunately, Larry Krueger did an amazing job building an argument. Here's the case for Roger Craig to the Hall. First player in NFL history scored 3 touchdowns in a Super Bowl. First player in NFL history to have 1,000 yards rushing and receiving same year. Only 2 players done it since. Led the NFL with 92 receptions in 1985, at the time most by a running back in NFL history. Ahead of his time, changed the way teams use running backs. 1988 Offensive Player of the Year. 3-time Super Bowl champion, played in 5 NFC Championship games. Arguably the best running back in football for 2 seasons in the 1980s. Named to the 1980s All-Decade team at running back, along with Walter Payton, Eric Dickerson, and John Riggins. The other 3 are in the Hall of Fame. Every running back from 1970 and 1990s All-Decade team are in the Hall of Fame. Top 20 in NFL history for receiving yards and rushing yards when he retired. Made the playoffs every season of his career. 4-time Pro Bowler, first team All-Pro once, second team All-Pro once. Only running back in NFL history to make the Pro Bowl as a fullback and a halfback. 73 regular season touchdown, more than Art Monk, Michael Irvin, Terrell Davis, Larry Zonka. 13,100 total regular season yards, more than Larry Zonka, Earl Campbell, Jim Taylor, Art Monk, and Michael Irving. More rushing yards than Larry Zonka and Gale Sayers. More receiving yards than Hall of Fame receivers Lance Allworth, Kellen Winslow, and John Stallworth. Well, I guess they're not considering Lance Allworth's AFL stats, because Lance Allworth's AFL stats were crazy. So, first running back to have 100 yards receiving, a Super Bowl, 566 career receptions, 7 straight seasons, at least 1,100 yards from scrimmage, 2 seasons of 2,000 yards from scrimmage. So, a lot on his resume that would lead you to believe maybe he should be in consideration for the Hall of Fame. So again, Roger Craig's last season was all the way back in 1993. So it's been 3 decades since he's played. Since then, he's been a Hall of Fame semifinalist and Hall of Fame finalist numerous times, but has not gotten the call to Canton. So is Roger Craig a Hall of Famer? This is tough for me because um, the rushing yards just really isn't enough for me to consider a running back for the Hall of Fame. You could say, yes, he is more than Terrell Davis. Terrell Davis' career wasn't as long, and he had a 3 or 4 year stretch where he had one of the best stretches in NFL history for a running back. Gale Sayers, another guy whose career was cut short, but very few were as dynamic as he was. Um, it's it's really tough, but I will say guys who've won numerous Super Bowls with the team, sometimes they get a lot of guys in. For example, the Steelers in the 70s. I'm not sure John Stallworth and Lynn Swann should be in the Hall of Fame, both their wide receivers, but they both did eventually get in numerous years after they retired. So, teams that are dynasties like that do seem to get more guys in. And I will say, if I were to do like my all time 49ers rankings, I probably would have Roger Craig over Bryant Young, who was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame. But let me know your thoughts. Do you think Roger Craig, the first 1,000 player in NFL history, should be enshrined in Canton? Let me know in the comments. Give me ideas of who you'd like to see me do next. Doesn't have to be football, whichever sport you'd like. Don't forget to subscribe. Tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend to subscribe. Like the video, share the video, hit the bell for notifications. I'm out.